let's continue right where we left off. Jasmine walked inside determinedly, and everyone stared, and Peter knew he stared because just yesterday we had seen him being dragged out of the building by security guards. Jasmine pulled up a card of her own. Local police force, she said. I'm here to ask the CEO some questions about this man. He was found rambling outside on the street this morning, she said. And I wonder and I've heard he caused an incident here yesterday. I wonder if I could have a few minutes of the CEO's of Times. The receptionist looked at her for a long time and then said, yes, of course. And then Jasmine almost dragged Peter inside the elevator and up into the top floor. And then they eventually entered Jack's office. And then Jasmine asked him a lot of questions. Yeah, he was there yesterday, caused quite a scene. He believed he was leading the company. Do you know where he's from? She asked him why he would believe that. No, I think he might have escaped from some sort of mental asylum or something like that. He might have forgotten to take his pills. I don't know, Jack said. You know, this really isn't my field. Why don't you just take him in? Because I'm just trying to get a clear picture of why he ran exactly here. Of why he just asked Jack. Of why this was the place he wanted to go. I don't know. Maybe you've seen it on the local news. You know, I mean, we're quite a successful company. Jack said we feature in a lot of articles and ads, you know. So maybe he somehow jumbled that and his fantasy together, and both they just believed he was leading the company. Peter actually this time played the part of Matt more fully. He widened his eyes and looked down at his shoes and looked around him in the room like he was confused. And you could see it made Jack uncomfortable. But Peter knew one of the security flaws of this building. Thanks to Susan, he had a pen, a very advanced type of electronic pen, which could actually download devices from the building it was in, without triggering the detection status. Peter had always wanted to upgrade this security flaw in the old reality, but now this flaw came in real handy. After a while, Jasmine was done asking questions, and I said, okay, we're done. Seems he's just mad or lost his mind. I'm sure he'll get all the help and support he needs, Jasmine said. Of course, Jasmine said. Of course, Jack said friendly, and shook her hands. If there can be of any further service, please, just ask, Jack said. No, we'll take it from here, Jasmine said and smiled, and then she gently led Peter out of the building. And then she did a high five. That went great, don't you think? Jasmine said. I'll report back to Susan, but I think you should meet her immediately. Yeah, of course, Peter said. And he did. He delivered the pen to Susan and he turned out all the files we needed there. And it was clear proof of Jack's corruption. And they even discovered plans and shots of how Jack planned to depose the old COO. But, of course, this alone wouldn't be enough to put Jack in a flattering light. But his deals with companies which engaged in what could only be described as pure slave labor would be more than enough to discredit Jack as the leader of the company. They just needed to leak it to the media and make sure the leak could not be tracked back to Susan. Thank you, you've done me a great service. I think Jack's done, Susan said. I hope so, Peter said. I hope I helped you. Everything you said is true, Susan said. Is it really okay for you to turn on an old friend? Well, Jack was never exactly a friend, more someone I worked with. I believe that he was a good guy, but I guess I was wrong, Peter said. I wish you well on your wedding, Peter said. Peter didn't actually mean that, but he knew it was polite to say so. Susan didn't answer. She just looked at him in pity and said, I wish you all the well too, Peter, she said. And then Peter departed the building. Peter may have corrected one mistake by helping his old love, but he knew there was something else he should do as well. He went back to the house of Bill and Julia. In the old reality, Julia had of course been his wife, Peter's wife, and Will had been someone who had lived a little further down the street, who Julia had always been interested in. But here Julia and Will were together. He knocked on the door and Will come out. Hello, Peter, Will said with a little uncertain tone. It was clear that Will was concerned that Peter would start to shout at him again. But Peter just said to Will, I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry that I shouted at you yesterday. It's okay, Will said to Peter and touched his shoulder gently. I know life hasn't been easy for you, or fair to you. I mean, I understand, Will said. Thank you, Peter said. And just so you know, I think you and Julia are a good match. You belong together, Peter said. That's very generous and kind of you, Will said. I know, especially seeing as I know we always had a thing for her, Will said. And that's okay, Will said. I mean, you haven't acted upon it in any way, so no, Peter, I haven't. But I just want to say I'm sorry, Peter said. It was really awkward to Peter, but he just had to do this. He knew. Well, so we're good, Peter said. Yeah, of course, Will said. And if there's anything I can help you with, let me know. Think you already did, Peter said. And then he walked off. And then he decided to return to the park. Grandma, I think I've done what you wanted, Peter said. And then his grandma was suddenly sat there on the bench as the fog surrounded them yet again. I'm proud of you, Peter. I'm very proud of you. You really do deserve to have it all, she said. I wasn't punished because I had too much, Peter said. You weren't punished at all, she said, honey. No, you weren't. This was never about punishment. It was about making you appreciate what you had. So what you could use it to help others, she said. There's nothing wrong with having a lot, but you have to remember to appreciate what has been achieved in life, and not just stress through life, she said. I will, I promise. This time I really promise, Grandma, Peter said. And I've really missed you. But remember, Peter's grandma said, I'm right here, in your heart. I know, Peter said. And when the fog lifted, and all of Peter's stuff was back, everything was back to how it should be. Peter drove home and he found Julia there. Watching the TV, and Peter sighed of deep relief. He was so relieved. Julia, he said, and then he ran up to Julia and then hugged her. Peter, Julia said, what is? No, nothing. I'm just so glad to see you again, Peter said. I'm just so glad for all of this. Oh, wow, you're really happy to get today, Julia said. Yeah, I am, Peter said. But Peter knew exactly what he had to do now. It was time to make amends for his past. The next day he returned to the office building and to his company, and where he almost marched inside. And then he met Jack in his office. "So I have this great new idea," Jack said. "No, wait," Peter said. Peter had actually that morning been looking into some of Jack's files. He hadn't kept a close enough eye on Jack, he realized, but now he had, and what he found there wasn't exactly comforting. "I think we need to talk," Peter said, and was very formal today, Jack said. "Something wrong?" "Yeah, something's wrong," Peter said. "I found a private chat of yours, so to speak. You've been talking with, well, let's just say you've been talking with contacts we don't do deals with. And to make matters worse, I found plans for, well, how to get rid of me as CEO," Peter said. Jack became very, very quiet for a long time. And then he said honestly to Peter, "I guess there's no use pretending. You really think I wanted you," Jack said, "to lead this company for all eternity? I'm sorry, Peter, but you're too stagnant. You don't take risks. In the modern world, we sometimes have to get our hands dirty." "I know," Peter said, "but in the business world, you sometimes have to do things you don't want to. But the companies you have made deals with behind our back, the contacts, the practices they are involved in, are so unethical. But we just can't have anything to do with them or with you." "So, what are you saying, Jack said? "I'm saying you should go," Peter said. "This just can't continue." When Jack didn't say anything for a long time, and then he knocked his fist into the table and said, "You know what? I'm done with this crap company anyway. I'm done with being second to you, and with my contributions not being appreciated," said. "I'll go and I'll do better on my own anyway." And then he knocked over a chair on his way out. Peter just snorted, and then he knew you should feel sad about this, but in a way it was a relief, because at least now he knew the truth. And I guess he never should have trusted Jack in the first place. After this, the company turned. After Jack's departure, the company did turn to a cleaner, better way of running things. And the company became far more successful than it had been. Jack, just a few days later, Jack was actually apprehended as someone had discovered his deals with these dubious contacts. The fact that Peter had gotten rid of Jack just a few days before saved the company's future. Peter was now more grateful for that alternative reality than ever before. It had actually saved his life in more ways than one. But Peter wasn't done. Not yet. He found Max, this time the wealthy version of Max, the son of his neighbor and childhood friend Arthur. And Max, who was around 12 years old, as usual were berating people, shouting after them on the street. Peter suggested Max take a walk with him, and Max agreed to do so. And Arthur, Peter's childhood friend, came with them. They walked down to a soup kitchen a little further down the street. Max looked at all the people there, and Arthur looked at them too. He looked almost lost. as if he was remembering something. "Why are we done with all these poor people, Dad?" Max asked. Arthur said to his son, "There's something I haven't told you. When I was young, a child, a teen, I was poor, just like them. Peter, he helped me out of it. But you said poor people weren't as much worth as rich people," Max said to Arthur. "I was wrong," Arthur said. I was just trying to forget the past," Arthur said. We should help these people. Maybe some of them even can become friends." Max looked at them, a little uncertain. "Maybe," Max said. Would it be okay for you if we just spent a day to try and help these people?" Arthur asked his son. Max looked at them, and for a while there was defiance in his face, but then Peter talked to Max and said, "You know, until a few days ago there were a lot of things I didn't believe I could do either, but now I know what being kind and helping others, that's what's the most important. There is nothing wrong with having much, but it's about how we use it," Peter said. "We can either just hoard it all for ourselves and make the world a worse place, or we can give to others and make the world a better place," Peter said. Okay, Max said. "I will give it a try. I can help these people, at least today," Max said. "Thank you," Peter said. "I'm sure I will appreciate it." And when Peter went home, but what he was about to do now was the most difficult thing he had ever done. He talked to Julia, and he outright confronted her. "I don't want to pry, but is there something between you and Will?" Peter said. And Peter knew the answer immediately, because Julia didn't deny it. She looked away from him. "It's okay," Peter said. "How can you say what?" Julia said and cried. "I'm cheating on you." "No, it's okay," Peter said, "because we're not meant to be. You and Will are meant to be together. And I'll... What do you mean? You're breaking up with me?" Julia said. "No, I'm staying with you if you want me, but I think you and I both know that we both long for someone else." Julia didn't deny it. We talked for a long time that evening, and at the end Julia said, "I'm glad we talked about this, Peter, and I know this must be difficult for you too. I mean, we imagined sharing a life together." "Yeah, I did," Peter said, "but what's the point if neither of us are truly happy?" Peter said. So they agreed to part ways. Julia found a life with Will, her true love, and this also helped Will, as Julia after all had much wealth, so Will was essentially helped out of poverty, and Peter helped by donating some to Will and Julia too. But Peter now also finally admitted his true feelings to Susan. And it took some time to convince her. Susan eventually agreed to move in with Peter. And they kissed a long kiss. They kissed for a really long time. And Peter and Susan both knew this was how it was meant to be. "I'm sorry it took me so long to realize," Peter said to Susan. "Better late than never," Susan said. And that became the beginning of a very happy life together for the two of them. Thanks, Grandma, Peter said. An early summer day as he looked out onto the blue sky. As he was outside on the garden and looked onto the blue sky. Thank you, Grandma, for everything, Peter said. The final thing Peter did before all was said and done, he visited Liv and invited him over for dinner with him, Susan, Julia, and Will. And finally Liv accepted his help. It took some convincing, but it did so. And eventually even Liv found his way back to a good life. He found a new girlfriend, a new wife. And although he never forgot his old family, he managed to find new happiness yet again. But in that summer, Will, Julia, Peter, Liv, Susan, Peter, Liv, Will and Julia all shared dinner together. And we all were friends, and everything seemed to end happily ever after for them. And during that dinner, in which we chatted and talked so much about the past and all the stuff they had experienced and went through in life, Peter actually imagined his grandma sitting in the corner, staring at them, wishing them all the best. And later that evening, Arthur and his family also came over for dessert. Peter now finally knew he was happy, and he had finally fulfilled the promise to his grandma. He appreciated all he had, and now he truly was the man who had it all. Thank you so much for listening to this story. In the future, I will not do stories like this. I will instead post them on Tumblr, because these stories are much more ideal in written form. But I wanted to just, even though I knew it would be very flawed to do it in a filming version, I wanted to just begin by doing the first story in a series of clips, and I was determined to finish the project I had started, and now I did. So I hope you could enjoy this story, and I hope maybe you can enjoy the future stories I do even more, because they will be in a written form. Thank you for watching, and have a blessed divine day.